Alright, I think I've got this guy to the depth I need. Now what I've been doing also is I put the key in here and I'm wiggling it. And before, when I wiggle it, I'd notice that when I turned to the right, the key pin would come up a little bit. And so what I did was, that meant that I had too much material on this side. This side of the cut is level, but this side is sticking up a little bit. So I filed that. And this is basically your deepest cut in this one. It goes all the way down past and into that first boarding. So if you're picking that key pin, basically doesn't get lifted up very much. Now they get lifted up more than I thought because of the sleeve and the stuff like that. But you can just look. This is the rest state. So this is how far you would have to push the deepest pin up. It's basically that distance between the key pin and the top of the Bible there. I mean, not core. So now that I've got pin 3 going the way I wanted to, I went over and did pin 1. And when I put the key pin in there, I could tell that there wasn't much that had to be taken out of it. And I just did a guesstimated bite out of it. Just took a little chunk. And that turned out to be pretty close. I've only got to file it down just a little bit. And again, the way I'm testing is I just stick it in there, and if it bumps like it does, then it needs a little bit of filing. So the mark, sometimes you have to turn the key excuse me, around in your leashy cutter, because I had to cut on this side, and the reason why is because I wanted it to fit flat in there. If I'd have gone on the other side where all my marks were at, you can see how the key is kind of bowed. That will make, it'll cut, but it'll bend the whole key a little bit. This is the better way to do it. So what I had to do is take all my marks that were over here, like this, and transfer them over to this side with a scrape, and then I knew where to make my first cut. But anyway, that's what I'm doing on this. I've got pin 1 to work on, and like I said, I'm just going slow. I'm sitting back here. I'm just taking my time and just make sure I got my little point in first when I drop it in. The reason why that is, if you're not watching out and the key pin is pointed and flat, you're going to wind up taking off too much material if you put it in flat side. The pointy side is designed to fit in that groove, to fit in just right. But if you go flat side, then it's only going to fit in that groove on the edge. And it'll also make it harder to insert and remove the key because it's not beveled. But anyway, we're not worried about that yet. Okay, so now this one's perfect. I put it in the Bible and pull it out, and I have no resistance. You want to make sure that you take care of all this, because the first time I put it in, I was getting closer, and I put it in, it would hang up a little bit. I put the key in there like this. I put my finger on top of the key, and I rock it back and forth. If I can feel it pushing up on my finger, then I know that the cut is not flat. It's not even. And so what I do is I take in this case, I took the key out, and the cut that I made, I just made sure that it was on a flat plane, and I used that one that, like I said, it only cuts on the bottom, and I went straight across and just took a little bit more out, and then I took the ones that's only cuts on one side, and I increased the bevel of the angle a little bit, just in case my zero is not exactly right and it's actually touching on one edge. Rather than deepen this out, it's actually touching an edge. So I just file a little bit this way, and then I just file a little bit the other way, and then you can put it in and check. And once I did that, the slight little hang up that I had before was completely gone. Excuse me. So we put it in like this. This is pin 1. So this is a very slow process, but the fun about it is, well, I say fun. It's fun for me because I don't have a key cutter. I don't have these machines and stuff that cost money, but it can be done by hand. So the only disadvantage of doing it by hand is time. It takes more time. The easy way would be to, figure out what this code is, go look up some book, and put it on a key cutter machine or take it to a locksmith and bam, there's your key, But it means more to me. And like I said, if you don't like to do this type of work, you're going to find this tedious, putting them in and checking them. Now, I've seen some people do an expedient method. They put all the key pins in, and then you just file the key pins off. I mean, that's fine for a challenge lock and stuff like that. And it is, like I said, expedient because you have non-standard pins after that. And basically, that's the only way that somebody would be able to duplicate that is with that key would be to make those exact same pins again. But we've got pin 1, and we've got pin 3, and then I'm just going to proceed along and go along. But I just wanted to say that that's what you want to make sure you're doing. You just take it slow. Don't take off too much material, and just make a few passes and then check it. And if it's getting better, then you're doing good. If the problem is if you go remember you're working with brass. I mean, this is nickel plated brass, but still you're working with brass. And if you take too much material off, it's pretty soft. There's nothing you can do with that key. Basically, I mean, in this case, I'm not doing as deep a cuts as the deepest cut. So one of these other key pins might be slightly longer, and I could just switch the location. But what I'm trying to do, I believe these key pins came out exactly out of the Bible, out of the core. I put them in exactly, so I'm just trying to match up the original bitting to the lock. Now the drivers, I believe, fell down when I was taking it apart, but I can match those up, like I said, short drivers with long positions. But there you go. I'll stop this for right now. Well, next thing we should have either a finished key or pretty close to finished. So I've got 3 pins that I thought were good. So far I've been working on individual pins and putting them in there. It's a 5-pin lock. I've got 3 pins, so what I wanted to do was to check before I get too far to see if my progress is good. And even though it'll go in like this, it's tight. One of these is too high, possibly more than one. You see how that's kind of like stuck in there now. So they're close, but they're not exact. And rather than, go down and do the other ones, I'm going to continue to work on these and just make it like a progressive type of thing, You put it in and you find out where you start meeting your resistance. Well, it looks like our issue here is probably pin 2. Pin 3 seems to be alright, and pin 1 seems to be alright. Now you can do a process of elimination, by dropping out pin 2 if that's the one that you suspect as being too high, and then putting the cylinder in, and see, I'm still meeting resistance. Now I got to tap them down because I don't have any springs or gravity to work too well. Yeah, see, now it goes in real well. So my issue is pin 2. Pin 2 is not cut deep enough. So I just thought I'd throw that in. You don't want to just, I mean, it's however you want to do it. I mean, you can sit there. Some people like Jason of SE Lock and Key can just eyeball this stuff, you know, and Paul Springett, looking at wafer locks, they can just know, you know, but that's because they have skill. They've been doing it for so long, it just becomes second nature to them. I'm doing it by hand and obviously not as skilled, but I'll get to it. I'll get around to it. It's almost there. Let me put, I'm going to use pin 2. I'm going to leave the key pin for pin 2 up here so that I can work on him and not getting mixed up with the other ones. And I'm going to take these other guys out and put them in their little slots, their little spacies. There we go. One thing at a time. Put that in there, put that over there. And all I'm doing is pin 2 is too much. So sometimes it's not, you've got the depth right, or pin 2 is not deep enough. Sometimes you need to just take a little bit more off of the slopes there, especially if you're not, if your centering is not as exact. It might just be that your slope is off. So, and let me hit it one more time with the depth maker. Sorry, I keep bumping into this. Payday's tomorrow, and hopefully, and when it comes, I'm going to invest in another El Cheapo tripod. All right, I want to take the edge off that guy right there. Now let's see what we got. Put them in there. Drop this in. Pointy side down. Stop bumping. In-flight turbulence. Alright, let's put this in over here. Oh yeah. I get no resistance, so we'll load it back up. Stay still. And put pin 1 in. These guys are slippery too, so sometimes when you're grabbing like this, they shoot out. And then you've got to go hunt the pins. So, like I said, I've got bubble wrap on the floor beneath me. Alright, so if they do drop, I've got a better chance of catching them than searching all over the earth. Alright, so success, I think. That thing is not snagging up. It's a little bit of a snag. Somebody's off by like a micron or two. It's not by much. So I think that's good enough for right now. I'm going to continue on with the other 2 pins. So for the last pin, I was trying to figure out the cut, and I basically just took the pin and dropped it in the different cuts that I already had, and it's the same cut as pin 2. So that'll save me some time and guesswork. See, it's the same depth as pin 2. So all I have to do for pin 5 is locate where I'm going to put it, and then make that cut the same as this one, which goes right down to that warding, basically, right up to the edge of the warding there. So that's just another little trick you can try. So I was doing all fine until I kept filing on pin 5 and it wouldn't go down, and finally I took off one edge and it really dropped bar. So pin 5, on this situation here. It may be alright. It's not going below that sleeve, but you can see there's a little ridge sticking there where nobody else shows that. Now when you stick the, if you rock the key a little bit, like pull it up a little bit, it'll work. So I think it's one of those that when you stick the key in, you got to stick it in and jiggle it a little bit. And that's all my fault. That's, you know, I was being patient on all the other ones, and then this last one, I did something wrong at the last, and boom. Now these angles you can kind of slope, but that's what I was trying to do to keep it from being so sharp to pull out. I'm going to cut off some of these ridges here with the file, just flat file those down, and it'll make it easier to pull the key in and out. It may look funny, but it's not going to affect the depth at all. So there you go. We'll find the moment of truth when I assemble it. Right. We're about to have our moment of truth here. This thing hanging here is a flashlight that's got a magnetic base, and I was using it. When this camera's on, it's got this light on it, but when the camera's off, there's not much light here, so I was using that. But I was getting ready to do everything, and I thought, nah, no shim. Which is a danger, especially when you've got these springs that were in this thing. On most springs that I've seen in locks, they sit below the shear line. These were sticking up like 3 or 4 coils, and they were strong. And then you've got those stepped spools, and man, it was really hard to reassemble. But anyways, we're not completely reassembled yet. We're about to have our moment of truth. I got my key in here. I've got my pins in here. I've got this guy shimmed. We're going to push it forward. It's a good thing I shimmed too, because there's that gap right there. Alright, we'll go all the way in for the best. Pull the shim out of the way. Now, we go to find out. I'm turning it to lock. I knew I was going to have that hang up, but uh-oh. We got a problem. It's locked. Oh, see? I have to pull down on the thing and it'll work. So I've got a working key. I knew I was going to have an issue with that. Because like I said, that key, that last cut was too low. Now let's see if we can pull this out. Yeah, that's another trick. I got to put the little bendy clip back on. So I don't get too far with this guy. That's the trash outside. Uh-oh. I don't have my pliers with me. But anyways, I'm just going to hold on to the core. It's not going to go anywhere. The issue I'm having with these right here, with the key coming out, is not only the strong, sorry, I'm banging this all around, not only the strong springs in the driver, but this is a hand-done key, so one of the things that you can make easier for it to extract is make these angles. You don't want to touch the depth at all. Now see, that's where I was making a mistake on pin 5. I was sitting here. Let me take this flashlight off so I don't bump into it. I was sitting here and I was trying to take the slope off of pin 5 back here, and to do an expedient thing, I used my leashy cutter, and I cut not the depth, but I cut more of an angle, so pin 5 hadn't been completely centered, and when I was cutting down here, actually by cutting off this side a little bit, it dropped the depth down too far. That's why this key works, but I've got to push up because pin 5 is there. Once you know how to do it, I mean, you can make it look like, ooh, it's good. But if you were a locksmith or anything else, or all I have to do is get another key like this and do all the cuts, but don't cut pin 5 quite as deep. And this guy can be a backup. But for right now, I have, technically, a functioning key. And that's how you do it, and that's how you mess it up. And your options, of course, are to get another Yale Y1 blank. Luckily, it's not a, order from Denmark or type of key. It's a Yale keyway. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that, found it useful, found out the do's and don'ts and some dangers and everything. And from start to finish, because I took my time, I took a break in between everything, but it's been about 2 hours. And I've been meaning to do this for about 2 months. So really, if you just take the effort, put it together, just be prepared for a lot of unexpected things, and your original plans, may not work, but improvise, adapt, and overcome. Thank you for watching, and happy picking, everyone.